Welcome to episode 113 of the Necronama.com. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now. And sometimes when I'm in the bathtub, I'm scared that I'll open my eyes and Dawn will be standing over me.
But it's just to hand you a towel, dude. Anyway, I'm Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, co-host of this podcast. And I'm going to have to rethink our arrangements for any of the conventions. I'm going to have to get you your own room.
So joining us today, we have Daniel Emery Taylor and James Azrael. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Yes,
I love the way you say my name.
I don't know why I said it that way. I don't normally. It was kind of weird.
So regal. Yeah.
I love it. I'm going to say it from now on.
I was joking with Daniel before we came on that our social commentary that we had to tell you was about why you shouldn't take baths with paranormal assassins. It's just hilarious that you opened the show with that.
Amazing. So why don't you tell our listeners a bit about yourselves?
Well, I'm James. I like long walks on the beach, enjoy a good Diet Coke under the stars, and enjoy producing with my buddy here, Daniel.
Nice.
And I am Daniel, and I'm a 35 plus year veteran of the entertainment industry because I'm old now. But actor, writer, director, filmmaker. I, however, like long walks off of short piers. Nice.
It's much more cooling when you hit the water.
It is, but he only gets to take one.
You just climb out and try again. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So, James, tell us a bit about the Horror and Sci-Fi Props Preservation Association while we're at it.
Ooh, okay. Well, I run the HSPVA, the Horror and Sci-Fi Prop Preservation Association, and we are a nonprofit traveling museum, goes around the country, and we're actually just getting back to doing this, too, at the end of July, so I can't wait. It'll be the first show I've done since November 2019. But we go around to conventions and movie theaters and display screen-used movie props up close, personal for people, while conveying the message of the importance of the conservation of props and preserving them for generations to come.
It's really cool.
Which,
go ahead.
Okay. Ironically, or maybe not ironically, I don't know, but it's also kind of how Daniel and I's partnership started through the Swamp Thing legs. And that led to It's Just a Game that we're going to be talking about. And the HSPPA provided some of the props. And I believe one of them, at least one of them, is from another production itself. So. Get
awesome.
Around. Yeah.
And of course, you when the inside is open, there are props in Chandler, Arizona, at my favorite place. As you know, I live at Spooky Swirls when I can. So there's that. And then what do you have going on in Vegas?
Because, the best thing to do during a pandemic is start new businesses. So we opened a full-blown museum gallery of screen-used movie props just about a mile off the Strip in Vegas. I did that with Nick Benson and his wife and stepson. He was the SFX artist on Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Society, Blob, a whole bunch of movies. So, yeah.
I haven't made it up there yet, but I'm hoping to very soon. So we'll see. So tell me how you guys met between Swamp Thing's legs. What's that about?
He's got legs, swampy legs.
And he knows how to use the... Wait, do we have to pay royalties on that?
No.
I don't think
only
you're
if we
saying
play
it
the real
long
thing.
enough.
So we should probably back this up with Daniel's beginnings in film.
Cool.
Yes. I was the fat kid in The Return of Swamp Thing. So that's my first acting role way back in 1988.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
So from there, I've been kind of in the, especially since, the internet became a thing, I've kind of been in the quote-unquote Swamp Thing community on message boards and later on social media and everything. And somewhere along the way, James and I made the social media connection, and then he came out to work on a film that I was co-directing, and we kind of just made, hit it off right away because we got so much in common. And then I think I hit him up with after the fact with, hey, do you want to put some money into a movie I'm making? And it blossomed from there.
Yeah, that's kind of how it went. And, so to follow up,
I like the direct approach.
Right? He does. Follow up with the leg thing was that I got a hold of the lower half of Swamp Thing from the Return of Swamp Thing. So when I got those, I of course immediately hit up Daniel and went, want to be reconnected with Swamp Thing's crotch? And he's like, yes. We eventually got those pictures too.
Oh, that's fantastic.
We did.
but yeah, so he hit me up about this movie he was working on, and I as an executive producer and investor, and I read the script, and by the time I was done with it, I was in. Daniel has a real way with characters that I just love in his storytelling. So that's I jumped in, and at some point, like during shooting, I became producer and escalated from there.
No, that's cool, man. So, Daniel, you wrote the script and directed and acted. Is that correct?
That is correct. And of course, when you're doing independent film, you do 1,000 other things. But yes,
absolutely.
Officially, those were my titles, yes.
And then 900 other things on top of that, yes.
900 other things, yep.
No,
I am proud. I am proud that on IMDb I do have an animal handler credit for an early.
That's awesome.
So, and the animal handler credit was because I was the one who picked up the live chicken. So
that's fantastic. Speaking of animals, James, your birds are in the background making a special guest appearance. I should have given them credit on the graphics.
Yeah. Well, just wait till Pink Chicken realizes I'm in here talking to somebody that's not her. Everybody's going to know.
I just wanted our listeners to know that you're safe and it's not an episode of The Birds where they're all lining up behind you.
Oh, man. I don't know where she picked it up. All my birds are rescues, so they kind of came with their own talents from elsewhere. For instance, one of them I call Sergeant Beep because he came to me imitating smoke alarms. And yeah. And so Pink Chicken, she's got a call that is almost a dead ringer for the Red Alert on Star Trek. And yeah. So when that goes off, we'll
fantastic. Something to look forward to.
Right.
No, we always get a lot of background stuff like dogs, or one time there was a race car in one of our episodes. That was pretty fun. Oh, and so it's oddly one of the few feedbacks we get on the show. People will be like, "What was this noise? I couldn't identify it."
You can run a trivia.
It's like my favorite email I've ever gotten on this show. It was just somebody who was wanting to know what a noise was because it made him crazy.
Nice.
But anyway, yeah, let's jump in. So, Daniel, what made you want to write this film in particular? Like, what was it about this story that you were like, this is it. This is the one.
Well, a lot of it came from just wanting to play with some different ideas. I had recently become a big fan of Dario Argento, and had seen Suspiria. I know waited way too late in life, but I had seen Suspiria for the first time. So I wanted to play with something that didn't focus so much on like linear storytelling as it did just kind of that surreal, kind of nightmarish atmosphere that Suspiria is so renowned for. So I just kind of focused more on the visuals, like the scenes I wanted, and kind of some of this imagery that I wanted, and then built the story out around that. Interestingly enough, the story initially was about like an augmented reality game that went wrong. But as I continued kind of developing the story with the cult and everything, that aspect just didn't work as well. So it kind of, fell by the wayside.
That's cool. I like that.
But it was, just kind of continued with the world building, and I wanted to tell a story that pretty much drops you right in the middle of it, and then just expects you to keep up, because I like stories like that. I when I watch, especially the Giallos and some of these more, again, kind of surrealist takes on horror stories. To me, I focus more on the emotion of it, the imagery of it, how a movie makes me feel, instead of like, tons of backstory and things like that. So that was kind of what I wanted to do with this, is just kind of drop people right in the middle of it. There's scary, spooky shit going on. It's crazy. And then it ends kind of, one may say, ambiguously, in some degrees. But yeah, just kind of just for, 80, 90 minutes, you're kind of locked into this little nightmare that we created.
No, and I think it works really well, because when you say that you just dropped everybody in, I mean, what's great about how it works is the people outside of the cult, like, we don't need backstory. We get it. They're friends. They're in high school. They have their little wars in their friend group. They have their the one they pick on, the hierarchy of bullies, as I call it. It works really well. We don't need to know more about their backstory. We get enough right there. And with the cult, like, we shouldn't know their backstory. So to me, dropping them in just worked perfectly. So, yeah.
Well, I'm a big student of like horror film tropes, and there's a trope called 20 Minutes with Assholes, which is almost every horror movie spends the first 20 minutes getting you all up to speed on these people that you really don't care about, because you're just there to see the killer. Yep. So I bypassed that. I'm like, I'm just going to drop people in, give them the pertinent information, and then kind of just let the personalities take over at that point. Because I feel that I wrote really strong personalities with the girls that you didn't need, 10 years of backstory on them.
And that also additionally comes through with how you wardrobe and the props you give them, and then, I mean, bottom line, the cast.
Yeah, totally. No, I think that it would have been a complete waste of time to do any of that. So I'm really glad you didn't. So I like you said, we want to get straight to what's happening. We've all watched so many horror movies that we know what happened before. We don't need to see that part. We don't need to see them in the van shitting on each other the whole time,
Yeah.
So yeah. So Don, what do you think about that? Did it work for you?
Yeah, it did, because that was before we started recording. I was texting you, and I was saying that I want backstories on some people. As far as, like, I would love a film just about Skullgirl, or a film about the mother, like 400 years prior. Like, I would like to see.
We do too. So any investors.
Like, I would love to see that. Whereas the kids and especially the cult members, you get enough from their interactions within their peer groups and their interaction with each other, to where that's the only information that you need. And the really good thing about a cult, or whenever a cult is featured, is you don't need to give me anything other than they look like everybody else, right? They appear as normal as everybody else. You see, I forget the young lady's name, but she goes after Jade in the record store, where she immediately latches onto her and is like, "Oh my gosh, that's my favorite band too. That must be your car out there with the sticker." And you just think about all the ways that people who prey on other people look for things that will make that person comfortable.
Yep.
And, Jade immediately brings her home and hangs out and all this other stuff. But even the family dynamics are great. Where, you got Frank and I forget the mom's name, but the parents, the first parents that you run into when they're having the sleepover, very normal. And then the dad who's making he's making the breakfast, very normal, very daddish, as far as like he's trying to do some things for his kids, and even trying to eat more healthfully.
Freshly squeezed.
Yeah, it's like, got any orange juice? And he just pulls out that big orange. I'm like, God, I'm waiting for another dad joke or something from him. But yeah, everybody that is captured, I don't need anything to get me in their mindset or get me to understand who they are anymore, because it's done so well as far as the way people are costumed, the way they interact with each other, and the settings that they're placed in. Like even Jade's room, I put this down. I got so pissed off because I was thinking, like, if my fucking kid comes back from college and her room looks like that, I'm throwing all of her shit out. And instead, if I don't do it, I know my wife is going to do it. But then you start thinking, like, as far as where your mindset was at that same time period. Because I'm pretty sure when I came home from college during the breaks, I'm pretty sure my room looked like that within an hour. So,
man, you're so lucky. My parents got rid of my room as soon as I moved out. They were like, here's a not so subtle message at all. By the way, we tore down the wall between our bedrooms, and now we have a giant bedroom. And I was like, oh, I see. On the note of parents, can I just say how much I love Claire's mom? Like, she's barely in this, and I cared about her.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a lot to do with the actress that we cast, Alicia Williams. Just phenomenal. Just whenever you do a horror film, you always want those little comedic beats to kind of break up the tension, and she just such natural comedic timing, and just made the absolute most out of every moment she was on screen. So yeah, she was fantastic.
Oh, she gets to say the name of the movie. That's
damn it. I was going to say, just that
I love
one
that her
line
name's
that
Joy, by the way.
Yeah. That line that she delivers, I laughed because I was thinking the same thing when they're like, it's just a game. And I swear to you, almost at the same time, we said, game my ass. And I joke with James, that was just like a very natural response from a parent or just someone who's dealing with a situation. Because I've caught myself with, my daughter would do something. I'm like, playing my ass, this joke my ass.
it was great.
I think that Joy is a testament to exactly what you were talking about with your writing, Daniel. Joy is funny. Her horror is awesome when she gets attacked, like, just great. And then she's completely natural and real as well. And I mean, getting all of that. I mean, how much screen time could she possibly have? 5 minutes, and yet she pulls all that off.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Especially when you're dealing with independent horror, lower budget horror. My philosophy has always been kind of keep things, as tight and as brief as possible. So you really want to maximize, every moment that somebody's on screen. No wasted time, no wasted shots, no wasted, not to say that you don't, spend some time on some things to help build tension, but for the most part, a lot of these, elements you just kind of want to, let the audience know what they need to know and kind of move on. And the fact that her performance was so good, and she got it. She knew exactly what she was doing in that regard. Just made that character pop out so much just because of the realness that she brought to it.
Oh, totally. No, it works so well.
Well, I told James the message of the movie was anti-bathing in general. I mean, we're gonna take a more holistic response, like our ancestors did, and we're gonna wipe off with some leaves and go on about our business.
I'm down. I'm already halfway there.
The joke there is the reality of it, because let me pull the curtain back on Brother Julius for a moment for you. I was tasked with wardrobing my own character, and when I decided what Julius would wear, I live in the Chicago area, and it was winter, and I kind of chose accordingly. And we shot at the end of March, Daniel?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the end of March in Alabama, and it wasn't like 90 degrees, but it also wasn't 40. So I'm out there with thermal shirt on, because that's what you do, with a shirt over that, and then a work shirt over that. And
yeah, you were wearing like at least 4 or 5 layers of clothing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And it was perfect for the character, but yeah. But you're shooting over 12 days, and that's the only wardrobe you have. So that was holistic, I guess is the word.
And then every time you try to take a bath, everyone's like, "No, don't do it. They're going to kill you." Yeah, no, it's terrible. Skullgirl staring at you in the distance. I mean, yeah.
Oh, I was Skullgirl's wrangler on set. That should be a title I have at IMDb, but it's not.
You should totally try to add that. That would be great.
Right?
But there are. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, really, there are a couple of different themes that in the film that are really kind of focused on. One is that with most urban legends, I believe there is at least a sliver of truth. Mm-hmm. Most myths, most religious traditions, whatever. I believe there's generally some truth behind them, because that's what makes these stories endure. And that's, when the kids are playing the sleepover games and everything, you find out that, in this case, the myths are much more real than, you initially thought. But that was kind of my mindset going into that most myths, most urban legends, traditions, whatever, have some degree of truth to them. And it's just a matter of how much. And in this particular case, way too much. But generally something to it. Yep.
Well, and I appreciated how it really mixes generations in a way, because you have straight urban legends, and then you have talk of Jeff the Killer and different creepypastas and stuff like that. And living in the world where I live, they're always intermixed anyway. But for a lot of people, like my sons, they don't really pay attention to like Bloody Mary and the shit we talked about growing up. It's all creepypasta stuff. It's all Jeff the Killer and Slender Man and stuff like that. So I thought it was cool how that really bridged that gap, because it kind of makes it not necessarily timeless, but it makes it so that everybody can kind of identify with it and get what's going on too.
Mm-hmm. Interesting
the funny
story
thing.
Oh, that's fine.
No, you go ahead.
No, you got a funny thing. You tell your funny thing.
Well, I was going to say that
my thing's
the funny
funnier,
thing,
but it's okay.
The funny thing about it is that they're the same. The Bloody Mary and Jeff the Killer and stuff like that. They're the same stories. It's the same, trying to scare your friends in the dark, a sleepover type thing. It's just the medium has now changed. And that's one thing that I think, especially as, adults slipping into the older generation, that we need to be cognizant of is that kids are the same as we were. They're telling the same stories we did. That's just the method of their storytelling has changed. And that's one thing that I found really interesting, is just how, we think about, especially Gen Z, and you think about, the kids being so much different than we are, and experiencing things, and their opinions are so much different than it, but they're really not. They're just now, they just have different platforms than we did. And that's one thing that I found really interesting in kind of researching some of these, creepypasta and the classic urban legends, is just how similar they all were.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, like, when I hear people complain about, they just YouTube it now instead of whatever. Man, if you went back to when I was a kid doing this and you told me we would have a way to add images and sound and like ambient music and, all this shit, I would have been all over that. Mm-hmm. So if anything, I'm jealous of what they have, because I didn't have that when I was 14,
No, absolutely.
You had to make your own noises.
I probably have some recordings of myself doing that. I used to play radio as a kid. Yeah. So anyway, so this is kind of self-deprecate. I
do that exact same thing all the time.
Yeah, I can't say it. That's how bad it is. So ever since I first read the script up until maybe a month before we premiered the movie, I thought Daniel had just made up Jeff the Killer as a lazy phrase in the script just to fill in space. So, and I could have probably figured this out had I talked to him, but I wanted to surprise him with the It's Just a Game comic book, the creepypasta comic book that we put out at the premiere. And to do that, I had contacted my buddy Raph Navarro and Danny Romero to make the comic book. So I go to Raph. So did you guys get the comic book? Did you read that?
Yeah, I have it.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So what that was to do was to take that little scene from the movie when they're all telling their stories, the creepypastas to each other at the slumber party, and expand the stories so that we could get an actual tale of Skullgirl and Mother Murder.
Okay.
And Jeff the Killer. So as I told Raph, I don't know, just make something up. It's, I don't know what it is. Dan just kind of threw it in there, so just do something with it. And then one of my curators that works for us with the HSPVA, she's the daughter of one of my close friends and into these creepypastas and stuff, and she's like, "Oh, Jeff the Killer, this is real? What is this?" Well, that's completely not what Raph did, but I like what Raph did.
You would have had to hire a 12-year-old to write Jeff the Killer correctly. Nobody over 16 can write Jeff the Killer correctly.
Raphael Neves did a very cool take on it, I think. So if people can find the comic book, definitely check out his Jeff the Killer.
That's pretty awesome, though. Oh, man. That's one of the things I always loved about Jeff, because it is such a terrible name, but it so encompasses that 14-year-old way, you don't need anything else. He's Jeff the Killer. And everybody's like, oh shit, he's a killer. Well,
yeah, because within the news media, there's always some, I guess, some cuter name that they try to give, or some more menacing name, right? So it's Amy Fisher. She didn't kill the wife, but she attempted. So they refer to her as the Long Island Lolita, right? So it's creepy and cute at the same time. Or the Hillside Strangler, or the Zodiac Killer. It has to be one of those things where you don't know what the hell it is that's their MO or how it's involved until you find out what the rationale behind the name is. Like the Son of Sam Killer. Like, oh well, is Sam his dad, or is there something else going on here? As opposed to, David the Murderer.
Damn that Dave.
Let's just copyright that right now for our next film. Everybody go see David the Murderer.
Ka-ching.
Spoiler, he's a gnome, and we didn't want to violate contracts.
Oh my
trademarks.
God.
And, anyway.
Way back with the reference.
So yeah, we're talking about creepypastas and stuff, and that's what the kids are talking about, and they're trying to scare their friends. So they convince her that, is it Mary Proctor? Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. That if you go in the tub and you lay in the water and you say Mary Proctor, that she'll show up and kill you. And then of course, the girl does it, opens her eyes, and her friends are there to scare the shit out of her. This is so straight out of every kid's history. Like, maybe it wasn't this exact thing, but everybody's done something to either scare their friends or be scared shitless by their friends. And I love how this isn't overdone, because this is how teenagers do it. And I feel like a lot of adults would overwrite this and make it to where you go, teenagers wouldn't fucking do that. That adults would do that, So I loved how straightforward this is.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
It did help that I had at the time 3 teenage stepdaughters who are now all adult stepdaughters. But yes, I was well immersed in the world of teenage girls at the time of its writing.
I mean, it shows, and that's always a good thing. I mean, when people say write what you know, it doesn't mean what you're an expert at. It's, hey, what are you, either researching to learn something new, or what are you experiencing right now? And that's the realness that makes things last. So
a big part of where all that came from too is I kind of went down I call it a Wikipedia rabbit hole, where you start off reading about one thing and then 2 hours later you're reading about something entirely unrelated. Like, you start off reading about, I wonder what the median age in Nebraska is, and then by the end of it, it's like, holy shit! Did you know Leon Russell played piano on the Monster Mash? It's just kind of you don't know how you got there, but it's it is what it is. And I ended up reading about Japanese slumber party games on on Wikipedia, and then kind of from there started researching them. So the games that they play are actually variations of quote unquote real Japanese slumber party games. I did want to give them I wanted to make them make sense and give them a little bit more of an American slant, which is why, they're talking about, Mary Proctor, the Puritan who fell down a well and melted, I guess. Those games are all based on actual like Japanese slumber party games.
Now that's pretty cool.
We almost ran out of matches in that scene too. Did I think we were literally down to like the last 1 or 2 matches, weren't we?
I think you're right. Yes.
Yeah. They kept going out. Maybe it was Mary Proctor after all.
But yeah, so our main character Brianna, she gets pissed off at everybody, and she tries to summon Mother to come and take care of everybody. And what I like about this is she doesn't think it's real. It's just a coping mechanism in the moment.
Right.
It's like, it's something that makes you feel better. And it's something that, it's just great.
We probably all, I'm going to speak for myself. I don't want to say anybody else has done it on this call or on this conversation. But I've been there, around that same age where somebody's either messing with you or something unfortunate has happened, and you're kind of like, oh, if I could fucking kill you with my mind, or if I could sacrifice, some animal to get rid of you, you start thinking of all these different ways. And now, of course, this is back when you had to go to the library to find any of this stuff. I mean, as far as like, things on the occult or magic or anything like that. Now you can just simply type it into Google and find some things that, at least will lead you down another rabbit hole. But yeah, I've been there. And so, at that age, younger, even older, it's perfectly believable she would have gone there because she's angry with what they had just done to her, how they were treating her. It's kind of like, I know this doesn't work, but fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway to make myself feel a little bit better about this situation, to give to give herself some power back.
Hell yeah. And one of the reasons Darth Vader is so important is every single one of us has always wanted to force choke a motherfucker. Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to do it right now. Like it's past tense.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's exactly right. I mean, we're all. I know every Star Wars fan has force choked somebody.
Oh, most definitely.
None of us would be.
See, I always fall back on the Force lightning. I like something a little more, showy.
If you make a sequel, Thaddeus should have some Force lightning. That'd be pretty sweet. I think.
Oh, absolutely. He's got to. Yes.
I mean, with that character in particular, that would be very fitting.
Right? What would be amazing about it is like everything else is just set in reality. So all of a sudden, this dude can fucking shoot lightning. Like, what? I would love that. But, so we kind of got all over. So we were talking about the bathroom scene and being scared, and then they go into the closet and they scare her again. And then she does it for real. She goes home. She's upset with her friends. And everything's falling apart, and she sits in her closet, and she does it again. She's lighting the matches and calling for Mother, and she says straight out, "I wish Claire was dead." And that's where this movie kicks off and goes fucking nuts, and I love it.
Yeah.
So
to kind of
yeah,
you have to really get in. You have to really get in the mindset of the Brianna character at that point. It's it is. Insinuated that she's probably dealing with some degree of mental illness. Just kind of with the little snippets of backstory we do get from her. And just like you said earlier, her power's been taken away. She's been humiliated. She's been cajoled. She's been made fun of. Even her friend is basically her friend because she feels sorry for her, which is something else, we kind of touch upon later in the film. And that's another kind of mini theme to it as well. But in part, and I want to say in part, to cushion ourselves legally, I guess, I based her on one of the little girls who was part of the Slender Man stabbing. I don't know if you guys remember that news story.
Oh, yeah.
Because what I found so interesting about it is she ended up being diagnosed with schizophrenia. Morgan Geyser was the little girl's. Oh, I guess she's not a little girl anymore. It's the young woman's name. And I, for a while, I was following her kind of her Facebook page where they were like updating people on her, her case and everything. And she was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and that was very sad to me because yes, she did this. Yes, she is absolutely was a danger to herself or others and needed to get treatment. But then, to put her in jail, and I don't remember how long she's been sentenced for, but basically she's being punished for something she couldn't control. And that felt just really tragic to me. Not at all to take away from, the young lady that was stabbed. I mean, yes, it's absolutely terrible and horrible. But at the same time, it's just one of these tragic situations. It's like maybe if somebody had noticed earlier, maybe there were warning signs along the way of, it really seemed the whole story is very sad to me because I feel that basically everybody involved is a victim. And that's what I wanted to play with, that with the Brianna character of, yes, what she ends up doing, I mean, spoiler alert, what she ends up doing are some very evil things. But at the same time, you wonder, like, how much of this is really her fault? You know,
Right.
how much of this is just she's trying to deal with life as, you know, she's trying to play the hand that's been dealt to her. And sometimes people do, and that's a, you know, a sad, tragic thing.
No, and I think that works really well with Brianna's character because while she doesn't purposely, like, I don't feel, maybe I'm wrong, you're the writer, but I don't feel like she still thinks it will work. When she's in the closet, she's just doing something to make herself feel better.
Right.
And then when it works, like, if you've had all your power taken away and then you're suddenly given some power like this, like, why wouldn't she make the choices she makes?
Right.
So yeah,
He's absolutely right.
Also, like, she sort of finds community with the cult, and we'll get to that. But she clearly doesn't have that, or at least she doesn't feel she has that. You know. So so let's back up.
That's one thing. That's one. No, I'm sorry. That's one thing that I think a lot of people don't get, especially about cults, which is something I've studied, you know, a great deal about as well, just out of interest. One film that I love that a lot of people kind of took to task was Midsummer. You know, which obviously came out, you know, after this or after we made this. But the whole point of the end of Midsummer is like, I just don't understand why she did that. It's because there's a community aspect, a family aspect to being in a cult. That's why they focus on the people they focus on. That's why they target the people they target, because it's people who want that. Human beings are social creatures. We are tribal creatures. We that's why, you know, I'm here in Alabama, and college football is a religion. And that's why on any given Saturday down south in the fall, you're going to go and you're going to, you know, huddle together with 90,000 of your closest friends, and you are all the same tribe. You are all the same. You know, you hear people talk about, oh, we really played good. You know, well, we didn't, because I've never played football in my life, you know, at a high level like that. But you say we because we're all part of the tribe. You know, we've got our colors on, and, you know, our tribal chants, and we're all part of it. Human beings are tribal creatures, and that's where cults flourish, is when they are able to offer that to people who don't otherwise have it. People who have been cut off for whatever reason, just circumstances, or maybe they're a little different or whatever. And that's where these cults are able to, and cults and other aberrant, you know, kind of religious offshoots and things like that are able to, you know, target these people because they don't have that communal aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna throw a weird throwback here. That's not horror, but it's exactly what you're talking about. And this is how I learned about this. And so around 1989, a movie came out that changed my life. It was about teenagers who were also mutants and ninjas and turtles. And I'm not joking. I literally learned to understand gangs and cults from this movie, because one of the characters joins the Foot Clan, and it's all about having a family and having a purpose, and like, it's dumb. Like, as I'm talking about it, it sounds dumb, but it really made me understand, or at least start to understand, how these things work. And I always come back to that in my head, of that talk that Shredder gives, where we're family here, and you earn the right to wear the mask, but you're still part of this. And like, that charisma and that sense of having a purpose, man, I see that all the time in politics or anything else. And that's always the thought in my mind. So I had to throw that out to you guys, because I thought you'd find that funny.
Yeah, you know, it's absolutely true. I mean, and there's even more to that. You could really do a deep dive into the Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I would love to. Let's do a separate podcast all about that.
I'm in.
But yeah, when you look at cults, and people are always like, oh, I don't know how they fall for that. Man, I think people are a part of a lot of cults they don't even realize they're a part of.
Oh, absolutely. It's easy for all the reasons that were given, you know.
So
well, it's that frog in a boiling pot thing. It's you start off with, oh, well, I really agree with these people on this thing, and then well, really they believe this. Well, that sounds plausible, and then by the time you've taken all these kind of half steps, by the time you get to the really crazy shit, it's like, well, I agree with them on this, and this sounds good. Well, then why couldn't this be correct?
Right.
Why couldn't the spaceship be following Halley's Comet? It's they kind of. I've noticed that with, and I don't want to call out any specific religious movements or groups or anything, but
Nanu.
Well, I've noticed that before, where there's one group that is very popular in parts of the country and have very active missionaries, and they don't tell their new converts about everything that their group teaches. So you hit them first with the good stuff. Oh, family, community, faith. We're going to do good things, good works, charity, all this kind of stuff, which is great stuff that all of us want, in our lives. And then later on, you start hitting them with, oh, well, let us tell you the deeper stuff. Let us tell you the other stuff. And then by that point, you're already in, you're already invested, and they've got you. And that's how these cults work. And it's you kind of hook people with what they need or what they want, and then once you've got them, you kind of hit them with the crazy shit, as I say.
Yeah, I mean that's how selling drugs works too. It's
Right.
Exactly the same thing.
Oh yes.
It's and then the charisma of the leader, and I'm bringing that back around to Brother Thaddeus and
Absolutely.
and the character is if that character, if anybody needed some backstory that would just be amusing and fun to dive into, it's him with his Daniel, do you want to take this one since it's yours? Explain, brother.
Well, can one really explain Brother Thaddeus?
Tell us about his lightning bolts. No.
Well, the backstory the backstory briefly is just that he's a failed child actor. Because there's the scene where he is putting on makeup and everything. He's looking in the mirror, and those are actually some of my old child headshots that he has drawn faces on and taped up. So he's a frustrated former child actor. To him, all the world is a stage. That's why throughout most of the film, and some people have picked up on this and some haven't, but throughout the film, he's actually performing for the most part.
Yes, he has a little audience. I love it.
He does. And one of the film reviews was like, well, this guy's performance is all over the place. Well, yeah, that's because, you see him kind of drop the facade a couple of times, but for the most part, he's performative. That's what he's doing. He's performing. That's why the whole, cult is structured as a theater troupe. He's kind of obsessed with this, he's going to be the star type thing. Even if he has to, make an alliance with an ancient witch to do it, to pull it off. That Thaddeus's dream would be, being a Broadway star and not necessarily a cult leader, but again, he's dealing the hand he's been dealt.
He just happens to be good at murder and monologues.
Yes, monologues. I based him in part. I mean, there's a couple of different things that go into it, but I really love the old King Tut character from the old '60s Batman show.
Right.
Me too. I love him.
Which, if maybe some of the audience isn't familiar, he was an actor who got bonked on the head and then thought he was really King Tut, and he just gave this. It was Victor Wong. Just gave these really fantastic hammy performances of, how he's going to kill the Batman or whatever. But I just really love that his delivery, just that kind of over the top hammy delivery, stereotypical supervillain. And that's kind of in his mind. That's kind of what Brother Thaddeus is.
Well, and I don't know if this was purposeful or not, but the other vibe I got from it was televangelist, because he's up on stage giving his performance for his limited audience, and it's all very like you just get that feeling of this is the glory of following, and this is the joy that can come from this. And then he's backstage and he's like, the fuck are you people doing in my way? It's just like, I love that switch. And I don't know, maybe it's just my own questionable relationship with religion of any sort, but it gave me that same vibe of the performance that comes with a lot of religion.
I don't think that is too far off the mark. No.
So I love the Sister Amelia, and I think it's Brother Marco.
Yeah,
these two
Leah
are
Hudspeth
amazing.
is amazing.
Oh my God, she was great. Like, just so all over. Like, she's all over the place, but she's not. Like, it's so well contained chaos. It's great.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, like, whether she's covered in blood or looking at stickers on a car and trying to convince somebody to join her, or like, everything is deliberate and yet so in the moment and like enjoying the chaos that she's creating,
Yeah, and dipping the bread into the blood.
She actually improvised that bread and blood scene.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she was just sitting there while we were filming and goes, I think Sister Amelia would do this. It's like, I'm hungry.
Oh, I believe it.
It was the most disgusting thing possible too, because that was frozen garlic bread that had just been sitting out, and she just starts dipping it in the fake blood juice and eating it. But it works. It worked. It was definitely something Sister Amelia would do.
Oh, no. I mean, the grasp on that character, just hearing that doesn't surprise me. Like, that's so on point.
They were having sex on top of a dead body.
Yeah,
so about that.
So, I mean, her eating
really
the or dipping the bread into the blood, that wasn't unbelievable. I mean, that wasn't even shocking compared to, other stuff that she and Marco were doing.
That scene was in the script was a lot more graphic.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could say.
James made me reel it in a little bit.
Yeah, I explained to Daniel that we're going to have a real tough time getting good distribution if they're actually fucking the dead body as it's in the script. So
I
don't know, sir. I've seen Necromantic. It happens.
I was going to say, you think they'd be all over that? There's not very many movies with that. Like, give us something new. Now, but I like how they're so reflective of how people are. Like, when they're out on their own doing what they're supposed to do, they're in power. They're on top of the world. It's all fuck Thaddeus. He doesn't know anything, and he probably doesn't even really talk to Mother, and all that kind of stuff. And then they go see him, and all of a sudden it's still confrontational, but it's very toned down. It's very, I want to knock you out, but I can't. And I love the line that these two walk.
They're like the middle management of murderous cults.
Yeah, they're just waiting for I guess their evaluation. So I mean, it's basically the same thing. I mean, that's a great comparison, but it's the same as if you are working any type of job where the boss isn't around. You're going to talk shit and talk about how they don't know anything about what they're doing, and then they show up, and it's kind of like, okay, sure, I'll go over here and do this. You fucking asshole. Yeah, just
the difference is there's a ancient witch standing behind you, ready to gut you. Oh, wait, it's real.
Well, you look at Mother Murder, she's kind of like the district manager. It's like you hear whispers that she may be coming, but you never really know until she shows up.
Surprise visit from corporate.
Right? Corporate always says they're coming and then they don't show up. But I mean, that's something that works really well too, because I can't tell if Marco and Amelia believe or like fully believe until Amelia's like, do you see her? To Brianna.
right.
Right? Like that's the point where Brianna has no reason to sell this to her. Right? So like everything else that's ever been presented is coming down the same channel, but all of a sudden somebody else can see her. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's a huge shift in Amelia's character. And a really good reason why she kind of, does what she does. And, but like, that's so real to me. It's so, I want to believe, but who knows? And then all of a sudden, wait a minute, you can see this. And I thought that was great.
Yeah, as Amelia's character was kind of that Stockholm syndrome situation, mm-hmm. where she was kind of kidnapped or trafficked when she was really young, so she kind of grew up in it, if you will.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
And she was enjoying the chaotic aspect of it so much that it's almost like she didn't really question. She just because she enjoyed doing what she was doing, and you wonder how many people just about their lives as part of one group or another, not because of any strong conviction, but just because this is just what we do. We just go to church on Wednesdays. Why? I don't know. We just do. I think there's probably a larger element to that than most of us would realize.
That's like one of my favorite movies of the last few years is The Babysitter. I don't know if you two have seen it. Don and I have talked about it on the show, but I always come back to this character, Max, who's played
the one with Samara Weaving.
Yes. Okay. And Max is played by Robbie Amell. He's a big muscle-bound dude. And there's a part where he's talking to the kid that they're attacking and trying to kill. And the kid's like, why do you believe this? Why do you believe that she's what she says she is? And Max looks at him and he's like, I don't give a shit what she is. I'm just here because I heard we get to kill people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that fits Amelia really well. Like, I don't care if Mother Murder is real or not. I'm going to keep doing what I do. The important thing is I'm having a great time doing it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and she found her tribe.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's not many tribes she would fit in. So.
But you almost you almost get the feeling though that she would fit into whatever tribe she ended up in. Like, I really feel like she's a chameleon.
Yes.
That she's going to make herself fit. Yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely. I mean, truly, she's a follower, and she's going to try and adapt however she can. I mean, this definitely seems, or she strikes me as the kind of person that they're going to look for some way to fit in no matter what, right? So, they go on a date or they have some friends or whatever. They're looking for. I believe even the comment about the band itself, it came so natural because she's used to doing that.
Yep.
So if it had been, in the house, if they had been in the house and she was trying to convince them, like, oh my gosh, you guys are Alabama and Auburn fans? Oh my gosh, I love them. And then, it turns into this discussion based off of college football. And then, next thing you know, she's caving your head in with a helmet.
Absolutely.
That's a Christmas card right there.
What was the question you wanted to ask, Don?
Oh no, I was going to ask as far as was the house divided sign intentional with the Bama and Auburn?
I like to. I'm a diehard Auburn fan. That's my tribe. So I like to kind of sneak the Auburn logo in where I can. But that particular thing was that it was at the house that we were using. So
Okay.
yes, so it wasn't deliberate in that we brought it to set, but it was definitely deliberate that it was seen on camera. Yes.
That's awesome. I love when stuff like that just works out.
If you want some stories from set,
Yeah, sure, go for it.
so that the scene with Amelia, when she comes home with Jade and she ends up a spoiler alert, she ends up stabbing her in the neck with a toothbrush.
Man, that was great.
It worked out fantastically, but right before that was being shot, Daniel realizes that we didn't have a shiv. And I'm not fully certain as to how this thought process came, but in his need for a shiv, his first thought was, "Hey, James, we need a shiv. Go make one."
Well, I just assumed being from Chicago, you would know how to make a shit.
So we sent our one of our grips off to Walgreens to buy some toothbrushes, and at 10 o'clock at night, I'm outside of this suburban home in Alabama, making a toothbrush shiv on their front stoop, to to kill somebody inside the house with. So that's officially the first prop I've ever made as well.
Do you still have it?
Yeah.
I figured.
And there's actually two of them. There's what I like to call the stunt shiv, and that's there's a scene that didn't make the final cut. So after she stabs her and she's doing the blood mouth kiss and everything, she's brushing her teeth with the shiv, with the blood. And she didn't want to stick the toothbrush that had been drug all over the Alabama sidewalk in her mouth. So there's a second toothbrush that she uses. That image is on the I think that's on IMDb, or it's in the publicity photos of her brushing her teeth. But yeah, so there you go. There's that.
This is what I love about it. Number one, it's not a kill I've ever seen before, so that always makes me happy. Number two, it fits Amelia so much. Like, I don't question why the fuck she has a toothbrush to do this. I'm just like, yeah, that sounds right.
Or where the toothbrush? I have been asked that. Where did the toothbrush come from? I don't know. Out of her pocket. She just carried a toothbrush shiv around in her pocket. Well, sure.
That's exactly what I thought. I was like, she totally seems like she would just have this.
Yeah.
Like, yes. I didn't question it at all. It made perfect sense to me.
It does. And I think that falls on something. People ask too many questions about movies sometimes that, you just got to suspend that belief. It's like you're watching a movie about ancient witches and paranormal assassins. Don't question where the toothbrush came from. It's just go with it.
I mean, that's me 100%. I ask way too many questions, but I also do it in a loving way where I think it's funny, or like I just want to point it out to people so that they're like, wait, what? Holy crap, So
One question I always have as a viewer is, why did nobody call the police? So I've directed 4 films. I believe 3 of them all end with the police showing up. So that's always or I like to see the next day, like the cleanup, because that's always my thought. It's like, yeah, you've killed the werewolf, but now you just got this dead body in the middle of your floor and the walls are all blown out, and like, how are you going to explain this to people? So I always like to have that. I always like to have that follow up of just cops walking around shrugging, like, I don't know what happened.
It's actually
in my neighborhood. They wouldn't show up till tomorrow anyway. So.
It's hot.
They're very busy in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
So.
That's actually interesting, Daniel. That because the cop situation in IJAG is a well. What do you guys think happened there at the end?
I'm still trying to process it because I don't know if it's. I mean, because there's no trace, at least from what the doctor is saying, is like, oh, there's none of this actually happened, or this, we haven't found any information that relating to them trying to do anything to you. So I just look at it as, was this one of those things where, I don't know, psychologically they convinced her of what was going on or possibly drugged her. I just sat there and thought for a while, it was one of those things I was trying to figure out, because I was happy with the reality that was presented before that reality is broken. So I just figured like, oh shit, the police showed up and rescued her. And now we're going to have, mother in jail or possibly, breaking out of jail and using her powers or something. And then you have a follow-up, or Skullgirl killed like 5 cops and ran away. But yeah, it's one of those things. I watched it earlier today, so I'm still trying to process that ending. It works because I don't necessarily need to have that question answered, because it's not that it's resolved with the final scene, but it doesn't matter once you get to the final scene if somebody showed up or not.
I like that.
Mine is way more jaded and just upset with reality. So mine is, I figured she was a girl and no one believed her. And that police tend to not give a shit and work hard at solving things anyway. So there you go. There's my jaded answer.
That's probably closer to reality. Yes.
Well, then of course the doctor, which to piggyback off what James is saying, because the doctor himself even seems to belittle her, her experience, and then says, oh, well, I'm just going to give you a prescription for this. Basically kind of checking off his patient for the day, or at least their treatment that they had scheduled, and kind of like, yeah, you're living with this family now, and this is going on. So hopefully things work out. Take your pills. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Daniel, do you want to?
He did. Do I want to?
Do you? I know you don't want.
Uh-oh.
Do you want to explain the hints and things about?
I think it is definitely implied that the doctor is gaslighting her.
Right.
So one could question then if perhaps the doctor is not part of this cult as well.
Okay.
So one could definitely think that. And then you don't really know. He tells her that there's no record of this, or there's no record of that, but you don't really know, and especially if it was an open investigation, you don't know what the police have found. Because there's no reason for them to tell him. So it's kind of left open ended on purpose. Just because there are so many different directions the story could go in from there, if we choose to continue the story at a later time.
I like that. I like how you just said that he says it. Like, I totally missed that. Like, there's no proof. It's not like all the cops are like, we didn't find anything, There's no press conference. There's
we ain't found shit.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just quoting my favorite movies today. But
and because because he's basically a person in authority to her, she doesn't question.
Yep.
You know, because we just kind of accept what we're told for the most part and go on.
Well, and it makes extra sense with everything she's been through and everything she went through before this. You know, like, I mean, that perfectly lines up to me. I think that's a great answer.
Well, then even beyond that, who's she going to go tell? Who's she going to go talk to about this?
Right?
Her confidant, Skullgirl.
That's what I was going to say. So let's talk about Skullgirl.
Skullgirl's phenomenal.
Okay, number one, her look is great. Like just the way she carries herself, like everything about her is so good.
Mm-hmm.
And Don already said this, but we're both like, we want a Skullgirl movie, you know? Like,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, tell me about Skullgirl.
Well, I want to start with her wardrobe, and it's a very unique thing. If you look in the comic book, you'll get a little idea of the origins of it and being her school uniform via the storyline. But where this look really comes from is when Daniel tasked me with finding a way to make this wardrobe, and Daniel's words were, "I want a Tuscan bikini."
Interesting.
Okay.
So a Tuscan Raider from Star Wars, for those that didn't understand that one. Right. A Tuscan Raider bikini. So I immediately, and Daniel sent me some great sketches, which I have, and I published in the in my book, the HSPPA Volume 2, for those that are curious. So I contacted my buddy Steve Gray, who does Tuscan Raider costumes for the 501 and whatnot, and we gave him all the sketches, and he came up with this thing that was using the Tuscan material and some of the coloring, and had that bandaged look, the mummy effect to it. And he actually went a little step further, and if you really look at her wardrobe, the patterning of the bandages and the cuts and everything follow kind of the skeletal features. In particular, you'll see a spine hanging down in the back.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'll let Daniel explain her.
Explain her origin. Visually, I wanted something that looked almost a little mummy-ish, but also kind of Native American-ish, because I wanted something that kind of blended some of these different horror traditions, I guess, because the Skullgirl character being kind of a blend of old school urban legend plus, new school kind of creepypasta. I wanted something too that was kind of a blend of like all these different stories that kids may tell, almost like she's an amalgam of all these different, like the Bloody Marys and the Slender Mans and things like that. That she's all that's kind of built in together. And even the origin story they tell for her is not unlike the origin of 100 other similar characters that kids talk about. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of that, and in a lot of ways she's kind of a blank slate. I almost kind of, being a supernatural character, I almost kind of played around with the idea of she is whatever the person thinks she is, kind of thing. Almost like, whatever aspect of her scares you the most, that's what she is. And that's not really explained or expounded upon in the film, but these are things that could always be revisited again if we revisit the character. But ultimately, she's the Leatherface. She is the face of the film. She's the most iconic character in the film. I mean, she's on the poster. This is the character you're going to think about. But ultimately, she's not the real monster. And that's that was always my view of Leatherface, at least in the first couple of Texas Chainsaw films. but that was always kind of my view of him, is he's not really the real monster of this family, of this clan, whatever. He's just the most, he just stands out the most. And that's the same thing with Skullgirls, because she stands out the most, but really she's not the big bad here. She's not the real evil one. She's just, again, kind of following the flow of Thaddeus and Mother Murder.
Now, I like that a lot, because if there's one thing Scooby-Doo taught me, it's that the real monsters are always human. And
absolutely.
And no, it fits so well with this, because if you saw Amelia and Marco and Thaddeus and Julius and Skullgirl standing together, there's only one that's going to immediately terrify the shit out of me that she's there. So I like how it plays on your immediate judgment calls on things that look frightening, versus like if I saw Amelia, I'm a guy, she's cute, I'm gonna immediately think differently than Skullgirl coming at me, right?
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
And Amelia would probably fuck me up way faster.
And enjoy doing so.
Yeah. I feel like Skullgirl might just kill me in like 10 seconds and it'd be fine. And Amelia would like drag it out for a day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think you nailed that one. Yeah.
Now, I do like that she's the poster, though, and stuff like that, because it gives you that feeling of the creepypastas and the urban legends and that
Right.
stuff. And then you're like, but that's not what's scary. What's scary is these real people that are going to fuck you up. So we tell these stories to scare each other. But it's that safety of horror, right? Like the reason that people watch horror movies is you can experience the fear, but you're safe watching it. And this like brings that into the story. You can experience, I mean, Skullgirl will fuck you up, no question. But like the overall creepypastas and stuff are just a game. But we flip that title, and Amelia is just playing a game too. It's a very different fucking game.
Yeah.
You know? And Thaddeus is playing a game. He's performing. He's doing this thing, but it's a different game again. And I love how if you look at each of the characters, you can hit them with that title and it means different shit. And I think that that's just phenomenal.
Definitely.
I dig it. Yeah.
I mean, the only other thing that is a real major theme that we didn't really touch on is, and this is alluded to toward the end of the film, but there's kind of the idea that Ruby is only Brianna's friend because she feels bad for her.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, when I was writing that, it's kind of a commentary on a lot of this performative activism that you see in social media and everything else, of people who don't really care about a lot of these things, but they feel like they need to act like they care, or they want to put forward how much they care, so they get the clout and the people patting them on the back and things like that. And that's kind of when she tells her, how did this work out for you, hero? And it's kind of like throwing that back at her that, we live in a generation where everybody wants to be a hero, but nobody wants to really put the work into being a hero. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of thoughts and prayers, exactly. And that's the thing, and we all do it. I mean, I'm sure there have been things I've posted about that's like, oh man, this is something I really care about. And then did I do anything? No, I just basically shouted into my echo chamber, which is what we do now. That's kind of just one thing I wanted. Ultimately, the idea is that by pretending to be Brianna's friend, or even trying to be her friend out of pity or anything like that, she ultimately did Brianna more harm. Because basically you're not doing it, you're not helping her out by doing that. You're not, basically you're making her feel worse about herself, because she when you are basically somebody's friend because you feel bad for them, they feel that. Oh, yeah. And I think that, in terms of their psyche, I think it does them more harm than good ultimately.
Well, look at us.
What?
I'm only friends with James for the cupcakes.
That's the sweetest thing you've said.
Aw. So, no, I think that really hits on another question I had, which was like, how long have they been friends? Because I think that it would change too. And especially as a teenager, you're going through all these physical changes and mental changes and life changes. And you lose that crew that you were with when you were 10 and you find a different group, and it happens again as you're adults and whatever else, like that's just life. And I could see that could also have followed them. Like she could have been friends with Brianna for a long time. And then as to her, she got weirder or whatever. And now she's hanging with people like Claire, and she's bringing her along, but doesn't necessarily want her there, but also doesn't want to kill that friendship. Like, that's all really real shit to me. And I don't know. I mean, I don't really know where I was going with this so much as I thought that was a great question as well, of just like, how long has this been going on?
Mm-hmm. Right. And sometimes I almost feel like a lot of times we stay friends with people just out of nostalgia. Mm-hmm. It's oh man, we were best friends in high school, and now, well, do you really have anything in common now? Do you really hang out now? Do you really talk now? Sometimes no, but you still remain friends because you've always been friends.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of just all that kind of plays in together with the the dynamic between all three of the main girls.
When you even get that that feeling sometimes where you're hanging out with somebody and the only thing they can talk to you about is, dude, remember 20 years ago when we did this thing? And it's such an awkward feeling because you're like, yeah, it's great. Well, hey, I gotta go.
Yeah, I've done a lot of stuff since then.
Yeah,
I don't eat in the cafeteria at school anymore, so I don't understand.
And it's weird that you do. No.
Yeah.
And stop dating high school girls, Matt. Oh, anyway. Was that a cheap shot? I'm sorry.
I'm going to assume so.
No. Anyway, yeah, I don't have anything else. I want to thank you guys for doing this.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
I'm happy you guys enjoyed the movie. It's, I'm really proud of this movie. So it feels funny sometimes, the way I talk about it to people, is I know how overly zealous indie film people can be about their project, and it doesn't hold up, but I absolutely feel this one does. So I'm proud of it.
Yeah,
so
I would agree with that. Yeah. You could always just knock out like a behind the scenes documentary as well. I would watch that. I could take any sequels you want to give us. We'll work on investors.
Prequels
anyway.
Too.
Awesome.
So this is where we do this thing where we do some movie recommendations. If people liked this film, what would you suggest they watch? And we'll start with you two.
Ooh, Dan.
Well, I'm going to recommend two films that actually three films that I referenced earlier. Suspiria, the Neon Demon. Neon Demon is one that visually I really tried to emulate. It's another one that is kind of, your mileage may vary based on the fact that it's not, a real strong linear narrative. But in terms of just how I felt when I saw that film, was able to see it in the theater, and then just the imagery of it, I just fell in love with the color palette, everything. So yeah, if you like the look of it, Neon Demon does it much better than we did, and also had about 800 times the budget. And then also Suspiria, the original Suspiria, and the remake, which is a completely different film, a different type of film, but still completely excellent in a different way. But this was, obviously, highly inspired by the original Suspiria. But those three I would definitely recommend. And Midsummer. I like Midsummer a lot. I know some people kind of turn their nose up at the A24, art house horror films, but Midsummer and The Witch both are two that I just really love. And again, to me, it's more about how you feel watching the movie, like the emotions that they elicit from you. Go ahead, James.
Right.
I go a little more old school with Motel Hell on this one.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. That's my go-to in horror, but this, between the cult and outside of making people into sausages, I always felt this had that similar type of a feel to me.
Use like preservatives.
Right.
All right. I'm gonna go with The Wicker Man.
Ooh, Nicolas Cage or Christopher Lee.
I only recognize one of those, but I will give you this. I will give you this for Nicolas Cage. Mandy. We recently covered Mandy, so definitely check that out. The Lodge. I mentioned The Lodge on another episode. We need to cover it sometime, but yeah, I think The
Lodge is fantastic.
Yeah. And then
I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh, definitely check it out. It's pretty, yeah. And then I'm going to throw out my friend Jared Rivet's film, Jackals. Okay. Jackals is another cult movie. It's basically a family that breaks a guy out of a cult, and he doesn't want to leave, and the cult comes to get him.
Oh.
And it's got one of my favorite
lumberjacks
torture scenes in it. So Jackals, check it out. All right, Don, what do you got? You have 11 films today?
No, I got probably like 312.
I went low for once. I usually say like 82.
So you would not make it on The Price is Right.
I would, because I wouldn't go over. All right.
No, I didn't say go over. You just said you went low. Anyway, one bedroom would be one that I would definitely recommend with respect to cults. And then everything else that's going on as far as the paranormal issues that are there, teens, all these things. We've got Ouija, Truth or Dare, Friend Request, The Bye Man, Jennifer's Body.
Jennifer's Body is a good recommendation. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Urban Legends.
Yes.
Oh. It Follows. Spontaneous, which we cover on an episode. The Vault, which I saw a couple of years ago on Netflix, and it's really these people go rob a bank, and it's that kind of same thing of friendship, cult identity, little paranormal stuff going on. Wish Upon, The Ring, Lights Out, and Crimson Peak.
Crimson Peak, right on. That's a good list.
Very cool.
I feel like I slacked with only giving you one.
No. Do not feel that way.
It happens when we blindside people.
James, as soon as he introduced that as one of those things, it was like, oh, this is going to be great. And I was thinking I'll do like 3 or 4. And I don't think I've ever done less than 10, probably.
It's good, though.
Right on.
Yeah. So again, thank you guys for doing this. You want to tell everybody where they can find you on social media and how to get a hold of this film or anything else that you want to talk about?
The film's everywhere now, I think. Right, Daniel? I mean, it's Vudu, it's Amazon, it's on, I think, most streaming services for rent.
Well, yeah. Pretty much Microsoft Store, PlayStation Store, Tubi is currently, you can view it for free on Tubi with commercials. And then I think it was also on Fandango now with commercials. So pretty much anywhere your favorite streaming platform, you can find it. I think I've bought it now like 3-4 times just so I have it on every device I own. Like, oh, where can I see one of your movies? Right here. Right. I whip my phone out. It turns where you can find me. Just my name, Daniel Emery Taylor, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever. Search me and you'll find me.
Very cool. If people want to buy a physical copy, is that possible?
Yeah, Amazon has DVDs. And if you find myself or Daniel at conventions, we have limited amounts of Blu-rays, which are better than the DVDs.
Awesome. I have one.
The Blu-ray has the Q&A from our sold out premiere. So
Awesome.
Fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
cool. And James, do you want people to follow you online or in alleys or stand over your bathtub or anything else?
I prefer alleys. Don has complete permission for the bathroom thing. I'll send you my travel schedule as well. They're done.
It'll be a surprise.
The HSPPA is, you can find that on Facebook, Instagram, hsppa.com, see where we're going to be. And Spookies with an S, Swirls. Just type that in, you'll find it. And Synologia, same thing. That's in Las Vegas.
Awesome. All right. So I suppose that wraps it up for this week. So as always, I am James Sabata.
And I'm Don Guillory.
And we will see you next week here at the Necronama.com.
And texting back with James and stuff, I was just like, they hit it. They hit
Awesome. Thank you, man.
especially by killing.
Thank you so much.
That was the only other thing I was going to say was like killing the parents, because I remember in some writing course I took 12, 13 years ago, and they said if you're going to make a story about kids, teenagers, college students, young kids, whatever, kill the parents. And the guy who was giving the lecture, he's like, you don't have to physically kill them as part of the story, but you got to get rid of them because it ain't about them. And so that was, that was what first hit me when Frankie gets killed so easily. I'm like, okay, cool. Here's where we go. Now it's just about the kids having to deal with this themselves, and having to deal with that trauma and that terror, and having fun after that. But anyway, I got to run. Thank you guys again. Hopefully we'll do this again in the future.
I look forward to it. Take care, man.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Have a good one, guys.